On today's show, we're going to talk about 6 challenges that we have in order to pay off our debt. Hola, hola. Thank you so much for being here. So today I wanted to talk about the daily challenges that we have in order to pay off debt. So the very first one is prioritizing our debt, because there's always going to be things that we want. And we have to learn to not necessarily sacrifice, but say, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to wait a little longer. I'm going to pay off my debt. I'm going to prioritize this over that. And learning to delay that pleasure, right? That instant gratification is going to help us, first of all, mature. And it's going to help us see that you can have those things that you desire. You just have to wait for the correct time for you to have the money, for you to have the resources to not feel strapped later on in life, right? Later on when the bill comes in the mail from the credit card company. Those moments we don't talk about. But let's do that today. How do you feel when you open up a credit card bill? Doesn't it just feel bad to see that amount of money that you owe still? Because if you had cash for whatever you put on a credit card, you would not get that bill in the mail. You just wouldn't. It wouldn't even take any more time of your life if you would have paid cash. And though that's the reality. Number 2, sticking to a budget. So that requires discipline, and it is a requirement to avoid overspending. And when you stick to a budget, you know exactly how much money you can send to your debt. And you sometimes, things happen in our month, but for the most part, if you plan your budget correctly, and if you need help with that, you can always reach out to me. I'd love to help you. But if you plan, you can really forecast, right? When you can forecast when you're going to pay something off, you can forecast when you can achieve whatever goal you have in mind. And sticking to a budget is necessary. It is a skill that not just businesses have to do, but us families have to do. And that is the basic skill that I teach in almost all of the things that I do. Because it is a very hard skill if no one has ever taught you that. And I think that coming from a Latino home, I can say I was never taught that. So I can be the only one that has been in that situation. So there is no shame. I've been there. And it's a skill that is very easily attained. The third thing that we could do is finding additional income. This might be taking up a second job or seeking freelance opportunities. And there's so many opportunities right now, especially with like Uber Eats and, what's Uber Eats and Lyft and all of these things that are easily accessible to anyone that has a clean record, that has a car, that has the ability to move around. There's also a way to make extra money like on Fiverr. There's money to be made, if you open your own business. That might take a little more time in order to establish like to establish an audience, but it's totally possible. And again, it's one of those things where you can find ways to make additional income. Another challenge is the emotional strain. Debt can be a source of stress, which affects our daily well being and relationships. And this is one where, again, we don't talk about very much. It's very shameful to be stressed about money. And I want to assure you, like, almost everybody in low socioeconomic conditions, if you were raised in one or currently in one, it's very shameful. And we cannot just The fourth thing is the emotional strain. Debt can be a source of stress, and that right there is something I want to talk about. See, debt brings stress. And that's why I am a firm believer in living a debt-free lifestyle. You see, when you don't have a bill coming in the mail for everything that you own or everything that you've bought in the last 30 to 45 days, that's true freedom. When you don't have stress, you know that there's, what you own outright. It's a really good feeling. And the stress not only affects us with our mental health, but it affects our being. Like there's a connection between all the stress that we have and how that affects our body. And that isn't spoken about. And we need to talk about that a lot more because, there is links to stress, triggers, a lot of different things. I've been affected by stress and it affected my mental health. There is a lot of correlation between what is happening in your body and the stress that you are going through. And that's something we have to learn to manage. We have to also find therapy if that's something that we need. We need to find resources to learn how to manage your money. If that is something that you need to learn, please reach out. If that's something you need to learn, please reach out. I'd love to help you. This budgeting and managing your money is simply a skill. I talk about it all the time. A skill that can be earned, that can be learned. Four is the emotional strain. We have to learn to manage our stress. And see, stress affects our body in different ways. It can affect our mental health. It can affect our actual body. And see, there is some correlation between that. So I know this might seem like, this is new, but there's a lot of research with the way stress, you might not feel like you're stressed, but your body is stressed and it can feel stress. And that affects a lot of your body. And we have to be more mindful of these things because stress is killing us. It really is. And we don't see that debt is stressing us out, but it is. A lot of us are stressed every single day and not know how to manage that stress. Now, there are two ways I would recommend. First is get with a therapist. Talk about your situation. Find solutions. Two, get with a financial coach. I'm here to help. There's so many coaches out there. Get someone to teach you how to manage and project when you're going to be out of this. See, when you see the light at the end of the tunnel, you can process it a little better. You can breathe. You have goals. You have a path to follow. And that's the important part. We have to know where we're headed. And we have to start with the end in mind. Where do you want to be? I highly recommend that you completely eliminate everything as fast as you can. You'll see the shift. I can't describe it unless you've been debt free and you know what it is to not have any debt. You really don't know what it's like to not worry. And that's so priceless. Highly recommend it. Number 5, understanding your finances. Not everybody is financially literate. So understanding interest rates and payment schedules and other details can seem overwhelming. And honestly, this was one of the things that I didn't understand. I didn't know how to read a credit card statement. I didn't know that, there was an opening date and a close date and all of these things that nobody taught me. Nobody told me that interest rate matters and how interest rates can be calculated to see how long you're going to be in debt, or if you follow the schedule that the bank gives you. There was just so much information that I had to attain. And honestly, all of that can seem overwhelming, and you can simplify it by either selecting one of the 2 methods to eliminate your debt, which is the snowball method or the avalanche method. You pick the one you want, and you can research here. You can research those 2 methods. I have episodes about those 2 methods, and look into which one works for you. You don't need to know a whole lot of details right now. The most important thing is to have a plan to get out of your debt. That's the most important thing. And if you start that, you have to vow and promise yourself that you're no longer going to use your credit cards. See, you can't really dig out of credit card debt or any sort of debt if you're going to continue to have that as an option. You have to kind of draw that line, set that boundary, and say, that's it. I'm not going to do this again. And that's what changes your life. Making those decisions by yourself, with your family, anyone that is going to support you if you're single, those are the things that change your life. If you're married, get your spouse involved. It's really important to have that partnership, to be in sync with each other about what your goals are and why it's important for you to achieve these things. Number 6, dealing with creditors. See, managing multiple debt can involve negotiating with various creditors and understanding different terms. And sometimes they scare us. They try to intimidate us. And they'll call nonstop. And I remember that. I remember being called multiple times a day by creditors wanting some sort of payment or wanting my bank account so they can automatically withdraw the money every month. And we just simply didn't have that. And if you're in that situation and you are behind on payments, there's a strategy to get out of that too. And for that, I would say give them a little bit. It doesn't even have to be the minimum payment. Give them something. If you have $5, throw it at them and just say, that's all I've got. And mail them a check. And that's it. That's going to throw them for a loop. It might hurt your credit. But let me tell you something. Daily creditors are a challenge. If you are in that situation, first of all, I want to tell you, you are not alone. I've been there. I remember getting calls every single day, multiple times a day, from creditors trying to get payment from us. If you are there, that's okay. There's a way out of it. And it is even more important that you get on a budget. You might feel like, I can't get on a budget. I barely make enough. I don't make enough. You might think those things. But the truth is, if you don't manage the very little money you make now, and you don't learn the skills to manage what you do earn, you're not going to be able to manage when you have more. The skills, the habits continue as you grow in your career, as you earn more money. So it's time right now to learn the skills. It is even more important if you are having debtors, creditors at your door or on your phone and are constantly harassing you. And first of all, they should not be harassing you, and you do have rights. But we'll get into that another time. You may be able to negotiate, you may not. But organizing yourself and seeing how much, even if it's $5 that you can send to them, will help your situation, will throw them for a loop because they see a payment, but it's not enough and maybe it's not the minimum or whatever. It throws them for a loop because they see that you're trying. So if you're in that situation, my heart goes out to you, but there's hope. So stay the course. Don't give up. It's even more important for you to get your stuff in order. Thank you so much for being here. I hope to see you next week. See you later.